Thank you. All due respect, sir.
Hear no evil, see no evil, sir.
No offense, sir.
Oh, see no evil. Is that what he just said about you? See no evil.
He said I'm evil.
No, I said hear no evil, see no evil.
Huh?
Oh, so you don't see me as evil?
If he don't see you at all, he gonna think you evil.
I'm with you.
I'll plead the fifth, sir.
You gotta be sworn under oath before you plead.
That's right. Gotta be sworn in on oath.
We're gonna go in over the radio.
Yeah, she's in the room.
In the little room? Why can't you?
Can't, legally you can't do it. She can't vote. She's on the premises. It's something to do with they
Where's Margarita?
she's gone. She's in England or something.
Where's those?
Don't know. They're calling.
The Reeves?
Yeah.
We got three.
You got three.
Yeah, we got three.
Three's a quorum.
He'll be a fourth.
I think we should cancel it. What do you think we should cancel it?
I agree with you.
What do you think? Cancel
I
it?
make a motion to cancel this and table it till 2 weeks. No. No, why? It still can be over.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I know this is very unorthodox, and we were waiting for Mr. Elihu. But at this time, we're going to start with Audit, if that works for Kirsten. For the record, we're going to open the meeting first, and then I will make a statement. All right, at this...
Turn the volume down in there. You're echoing here.
Okay, we're going to try that again. We're going to open this meeting. This is a regular city council meeting of the Williston City Council. It is Tuesday, July 19th at 6 p.m. And we will call this meeting to order, and I will ask the city clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Goodman. Council President Jones.
Here.
Vice President Robinson. She's absent. Councilmember Cox. Here. Councilmember Bullock. Here. Councilmember Ross. Absent at the moment. City Manager Jackie Gorman.
Here.
Deputy City Manager Dina Nelson.
Here.
Attorney Kirsten Ballou.
Here.
City Clerk Latricia Wright. Here. And all other staff.
Here.
Thank you.
Can you turn your mics on, please?
Okay, at this time, I will just make a statement that I have had COVID. I haven't had fever for 3 days. I'm in an adjoining room. If I need to stick my head in to vote, I can do that. I'm trying not to do that. And first thing I'd like to do is ask the 2 council members that are sitting there, would either one of you like to run the meeting tonight, or do you want me to do it?
I'm not very good with that. I'd rather pass.
Totally up to you. It may be easier if one of you does it. If not, you can put up with this.
I'm comfortable with her being in the room adjoining.
Wow.
Do we have consensus that I should continue, or is one of you taking over?
Mr. Cox will do it.
You got it, Deborah. You can run it.
Okay. Mike, are you doing it, or am I doing it?
He says you got it, he says you got it.
You're doing it.
I got it, okay. All right, we will, at this time, please stand for the opening prayer and the pledge of allegiance by the mayor.
Good evening. Please join me in a moment of prayer. Father, we come to you tonight, a city in the country of the United States of America. And Lord, we come here tonight and we give thanks for everything that we have. We know we have struggles, Lord, and we know that with your guidance, these fine people that have dedicated their time to try to help in leading this city will do an excellent job. Lord, I just ask you to be with my police department, Lord. Protect each and every officer as they go about their duties. Give them the wisdom to stay safe, the ability to follow their training, and the will to do the work that they have chosen as an occupation. And Lord, I ask you to be with the fire department, where every fire, Lord, that they may go into, they just don't know what they're going to be faced with. And Lord, I ask you to be with our state government, our federal government, and the Congress of the United States of America, and help them to overcome all the adversity that they are facing. And tonight, Lord, we just give you praise, and we ask for a hedge of protection on this building and on each and every person for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 1 on our agenda is the additions, deletions, changes, or approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion for approval if there are no changes.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as read.
If you made a motion, I haven't heard it.
I second that motion.
I have a motion and I have a second. Do I have any discussion from anyone? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 2, recognition of Christy Richards and Dallas Lester for achieving certification. Mr. Mayor, are you prepared to do that tonight?
Yes, Madam President, I am.
The floor is yours.
I have a question. Is Christy Richardson here? Hi, Christy. Okay, and Dallas Lester, are you here?
Yes, sir.
Then I will get up. Christy and Dallas, could I get you to join me up here, please? Yes, right up here in front of all of these people. Right over here by this. Thank you, sir. I want to start off with Christy. Christy is from the Panhandle of Florida, where my wife is from, so it's got to be good people. Where she owned and operated a successful landscaping company for 32 years. After moving to this area approximately 4 years ago, she decided to go back to work. After hearing from a friend about a meter reader job opening at the city of Williston, she applied. I'm so startled I lost my place. She was fortunate enough to get that job and started her new job on September 21st, 2020. Since being employed at the city, she has gone from meter reader to lead meter reader, plus gas compliance through licensure. She has completed and received a certificate for the completion of the cathodic protection class offered by the Southern Cathodic Protection. With the completion of the online and field training necessary for the completion of her gas license, she has been involved with the yearly gas compliance inspection with the state and federal government. She was honored to play a part in the city of Williston having, and I heard about this in case you haven't, having its best gas inspection result in years. She has completed the training with Joe Wayne with the Levy County School Board to be the city of Williston in-house CDL trainer, having a 100% pass rate. I haven't done that my entire life. No. Give her an applause for that, please. She has been employed here at the city of Williston for approximately 2 years, yet it sounds like a 10-year
Thank you.
ability. I'm just astounded. Since that time, she has learned and worked at the water department. She has obtained her state water license. She has completed her class for collections and distributions level 3 coursework. Tonight, we recognize her for her latest achievements. We're delighted to acknowledge her certification for water distribution license level 3. Congratulations. Thank you. Dallas Lester. Dallas Lester was hired on November 1st, 2021 as a water technician within the Public Works Department. Previously, Mr. Lester worked as an engineer for the United States Army. God bless you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
In his 13 years of service, he served as a combat engineer and heavy equipment operator, completing year-long combat tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan. As a non-commissioned officer, he has received multiple citations and awards. Mr. Lester has also worked in other fields before joining the city of Williston. He worked as an RV tech for a year, a land surveyor for a year, and a field engineer for 2 years. He has furthered his education by attending Hillsborough Community College in Tampa and the College of Central Florida in Ocala. Since his hire date, he has completed the following classes and licenses. Water distribution, level 3. That was on November the 9th, 2021. Wastewater collection, class C. That was November 16th, 2021. Cathodic protection basic corrosion course. That was January 21st, 2022. Water distribution, level 3 license. That was January, February, March. March 21st, 2022. Natural gas certification. That was, what's before June? April, May, 05/28 for those mathematicians among you. In 2022, on June, finally one I know, June 13th, 2022, he was promoted to the position of gas technician crew leader. Tonight, we recognize him for his latest achievements, but there have been many prior to this. We're delighted to acknowledge his certification for water distribution, license level 3, and gas certification. Thank you for everything. You want to picture these two? You two, no, okay, I'll stay in it.
I'm not gonna stop the lease.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations to Christy and Dallas. At this time, we'll have our first opportunity for public participation. If you have something to add at this time from the...
Uh-oh.
Malfunction. Can't hear your mic. Can't hear your microphone.
Everybody can go down and she
Nope.
can come in.
Can you hear this one?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, for public participation, if you have something you would like to add that is not on the agenda, please come to the podium. There will be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. Does anyone see anyone that I don't see?
Nope.
No, ma'am.
Clear.
Okay, thank you so much. We will move this time to the consent agenda, which is item number 4, consisting of the council meeting minutes of July 5th. Are there any changes that need to be made to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda for council minutes from July 5th, 2022.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from anyone? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item number 5 is old business. A is staff, board, and council updates. We will begin with council, city manager Jackie Gorman.
Hey, good evening, council. Am I on? Can you hear me?
Nope.
No.
I don't think so. That's 1, 2, hello. Okay. Talk what?
We have a microphone
Test
coming to
1,
you.
2.
Just 1, 2, got it.
Good evening, everyone. We've been tied up with, meeting with with our department with budgets, seeing that we have our first budget hearing on the 28th. So not our first hearing, our first budget workshop. So that's consumed most of our time. I can tell you, we did go through our water audit today with Swiftmud, so you'll be seeing a report coming on that pretty soon. It was an interesting day. I know our guys have been wrapped up with that most of the day in Public Works. We did get a letter back in May. I don't know if you remember our Central Florida Community Action Group. We have many churches, organizations that help our folks who cannot make their utility bills. And this group is one of them. And they offer so many wonderful services, and I think you've heard presentations from them before, Council. But we did get a letter from them in May. It said, thank you so much for city's continued hospitality to Central Florida Community Action Agency. We enjoy partnering with the city of Williston on helping to ensure that your citizens, Levy County citizens at large, are provided services. Services that mitigate problems that can lead to a life of poverty. We at Central Florida Community Action are committed to helping low-income individuals and families become self-sufficient in Alachua, Levy, and Marion County. Central Florida Community Action is committed to helping people strengthen their lives through community partnerships. As we discussed prior, we'd like to move our Levy County operations to the city of Williston. We're asking your assistance by providing us any information that you have on space that you have available in Williston that would accommodate and meet our needs. We're dealing not only with our citizens and needing assistance. But a lot of them have language barriers here in Williston. We have quite a minority group that have a hard time communicating and not being computer savvy. So I'd like for council to possibly consider giving them space. Now, all of our offices are pretty busy, are pretty tied up. I would love to hear some thoughts or ideas on how we can do that. This way, when people come in with their water bill or their utility bill, that they know a person they could go to that can help them. So in these times, I think we really need to take consideration and see if we can't find them a space in this building. So with that, that's all I have. Thank you.
I like the idea of having them in the building. It would help the residents, instead of having them go here to different places to get help. So I like the idea of them being in here. We should make it happen. You know, I brought up before is, you know, with the mayor, he oversees the police and fire. What about an office over there? So, I think this organization would be very beneficial by being in here into our city hall. So that's my thoughts.
How many, office rooms are they? Is it just
Well, what I'm
one?
saying, just want a place where they
One
can close
room.
the door and have some confidentiality. If you haven't been in here during when bills are due and cutoff time, it's quite active. And knowing that they have a place that they can go in at any time, try and help out early, makes a big difference to some of these folks who are in dire need. So it would be nice to have that agency here so that they'd be visible.
Denton has his hand up in the back of the room.
I guess we can, I don't know how that works.
What about this conference room that the council president is currently in, that used to be the office of the mayor?
We use that daily for conferences. I mean, we're always meeting. We have meetings constantly in that office as well. I thought of that too, but we need a meeting space, and that's completely wired for all of our teams and Zoom meetings. That's what we use that for every day, pretty much.
I understand Benton's hand.
Just something for consideration for everybody. With different airports across the region, occasionally you find the area's Chamber of Commerce office. So it's a possibility that if the chamber would be willing to, or the chamber office would be willing to relocate to the airport, maybe that would open that office space up. Just something to think about.
I mean, I like that idea better than the mayor. The mayor's the face of Williston. I kinda like him here at the front of City Hall.
May I ask, Ms. Gorman, have you talked to the chamber? Have you discussed with them if they would be interested in that?
I haven't because they have people in and out all day too, so they're pretty busy with business. And remember, anybody that comes in here, they're also frequenting our downtown, so it's kinda nice to have a hub where you have a lot of traffic and people in and out. They see our businesses out there. That's kind of a common for downtowns to house your public offices like that. And it doesn't mean that they can't go, but they're located so far out, so it'd be an inconvenience, I would think, for them, but I'm not gonna speak for them. They can tell us if that's a viable idea.
so I don't know where the discussion went on that particular issue. Are we gonna talk to a couple of parties and come back? Is that what we're gonna do?
That's what I think we need to do.
I mean, I for one am perfectly happy with the chamber where they are. I do agree that we need the Central Florida Community Action Agency in our building to best serve people. Where we put them is another issue.
I apologize for interrupting you, but you're not here, so I can't see you. And I, as the mayor, am convinced that my best place is here at City Hall, and I think that that office should stay there. May I ask, I don't really, this is a little difficult with the president being out of the room. City Manager Gorman, you know this building better than anybody, correct?
Yes, sir.
Are all of our spaces back here totally used to the maximum capacity?
They are. We're booked.
And-
We're full.
And this room, you feel you keep open for other uses?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I do.
So, then there are no other offices, is what I think I hear you saying.
That's correct.
There is no place.
That's correct.
And that is why you entered the plea to ask if anybody could come up with an idea.
Just looking for ideas.
Okay. So, by your best estimate, there is no place where we can get these people a private office in this building.
Confidentiality is a very big part of what they do, so I
Okay.
thought about maybe doing a cubby out in the lobby or something for them for certain hours during the week, but they need confidentiality. If you're here during the day, you see that every office, everybody in this building is buzzed and we're busy all the time. I just wanted to make sure that their letter was heard and that we could think about how we could accommodate them if possible. If not, we could look outside the building for sure. But we really see a need, and I just wanted to make sure that council was aware.
I have nothing further to add. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay, we'll move on, but I suggest that we ask the community action agencies if they have certain days and times they need.
Thank you, I will.
Okay, is there anything else, Ms. Gorman?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else from the staff who has anything at this time?
Yes, ma'am. This is Chief Stegall with the Fire Department.
Yes, sir.
Today I had met with the Levy County Board of County Commissioners in reference to the annual fire budgeting meetings for staff. Such. We had been asking them for an additional $59,000 this year. They went across the board with a 15% increase for all fire departments. That put us not at 59,000, but a little bit over 55,000 of an increase from Levy County this next budget cycle.
Good news. Thank you for representing us there. Anything else from any other staff members?
Yes, ma'am. This is Chief Rose, Williston Police Department. Just want to give an update on the ballistic shields we spoke about at the last city council meeting. I'm glad to report that we have been able to purchase 4 shields so far and shipped out. Thank you, Ms. Judy, for the generous donation for those shields. So they should be here probably sometime next week. I have the quotes for other shields to be purchased in the future as we move forward. Also want to advise everybody that on July 29th at 9:30 a.m. at the Williston Police Department, we will be remembering Corporal David Moss, who is the only Williston officer that has lost his life in the line of duty. That will be Friday, July 29th, 2022 at 9:30 at the Williston Police Department. It'll be a small, short ceremony just recognizing David and remembering him for what he gave to the city and the sacrifice of his life. And I have one other thing that I'd like to report is that, Sergeant Brack, who is, I think, a 16-year employee of the Williston Police Department, will be officially retired on September 15th of 2022. So we want to thank Sergeant Bright for his dedicated service to this police agency and to this community. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief Roll. Anyone else in from staff at this time? Okay, anyone from the council have an announcement that they need to make or an update at this time?
I have none. I have none.
Okay, we have one more opportunity at the end. Is there anyone in attendance from the CRA?
Art? Constantino?
Art, would you like to give an update, or are you just in attendance?
There's no update. You want me to have to go over there? Hi, I'm Art Constantino. I'm one of the board members for the CRA. We've gone through a lot of work to get this work finalized. They've already begun their work over there. I'm happy to report they're doing a really great job at securing the walls and making sure everything's going to look good for the citizens of Williston to enjoy walking through, if need be. They came up with as far as they can a budget, and we agreed on the cost, and now it's up to the city council to accept. And I thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate the update. We'll move at this time to item B, Resolution 2022-38, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, approving extension to the interlocal agreement for the school crossing guards for 2022-2023 school year, and providing an effective date. Ms. Nelson.
We're asking for an extension to our crossing guard, along with this, pay rate increase for the budget season. And it is just a continuation, since, many years, actually since 1997. And so we're just asking for a resolution on this continuance of the crossing guard with Levy County Schools, effective July 1 through July 30th of 2023. And we do have a signed agreement through Levy County School Board, and we'd just like to have an extension for that.
Any questions for Ms. Nelson?
Ms. Darrell, Councilmember Cox didn't have any questions.
So, I guess now it's up to the vote, correct? All right, so I make a motion that we approve the resolution of 2022-38. Mr. Cox seconded it.
Okay, no motion and a second. Are there any questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, item C, resolution 2022-44. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, establishing authorization for the City of Williston to extend the contract for professional consulting services to Wright Pierce and providing an effective date. Mr. Barber and Mr. Nichol.
Yes, Council President Jones. This is for, as we spoke about last meeting, the agreement with Wright Pierce. You'll find in your packet attached Resolution 2022-44. Appendix A is the contract extension, and then Appendix B is the original contract that we would be extending. As mentioned, Mr. Nichol from Wright Pierce is here to answer any questions that the council may have regarding this agreement.
Any questions for Mr. Nichol? He did give us an overview of this at the last meeting. If not, I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2022-44.
I make a motion that we approve resolution 2022-44.
Yes.
I second.
Did we get a motion? I'm sorry.
We have a motion and a second.
Okay, I'm sorry, the screen froze. Okay, are there any discussion from anyone? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. At this time, we're going to open a public hearing for the second reading of Ordinance 2022-698. The second reading of Ordinance 2022-698, an ordinance of the City of Williston, Florida, making certain findings and determinations, amending sections 40-141 through 40-145 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Williston, enacting and providing for the electric utility rate making by resolution, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Mr. Barber, Mr. Finklia, and Ms. Bullock.
Yes, Council President Jones. So sections 40 through 142 and sections 40 through 145 basically are eliminating specific rate fees as mentioned by ordinance. To answer questions of legality for this process change to the city attorney, Ms. Liu.
Good evening, everyone. So the ordinance, Jody and I have had an opportunity to look over this separately and together. We've been able to work with Public Works, and this is what we have come up with. This ordinance essentially, as was just stated, changes your process from providing your rates for your electric utilities by ordinance, which is how you currently do it. It changes that to your ordinance will now read that the rates will be provided by resolution. So there are pros and cons to both ways of doing this. There are many cities that do The exact same thing that you would be moving to here, which is provide via resolution. The pros of that are that it's easier to keep up with market changes as far as what you're paying for your electric, which means that you can change with the market, both passing on savings and passing on costs to your customers. So that's one of the pros. Another one of the pros is that it is a quicker process as far as you have to have less meetings on changing the resolution. So you'll only have one meeting to change the rates via resolution versus the 2 meetings that you would need to change it via ordinance. Now there are also cons to this, which are really kind of the flip side of both of those points. The flip side of both of those points is that it is easier, it provides less predictability, and so some cities don't do it because of that, because there is slightly less predictability for customers, and that there is sort of a view maybe that there is more variability depending on the commission. So those are what really the pros and cons that we see with the cities that we represent, and they consider those factors when they make a determination of how they want to do this. In my conversations with Jody, we've looked at other ordinances which other cities have enacted in order to create a resolution-based changing process for your rates. And I'm confident that this resolution, if you decide to go with it, is legal and is sufficient in order to do what it is that you would be wanting to do. So I can answer any more specific questions than that about legality.
At this time, we'd like to have Mr. Jody Finkley from FMPA and FMEA, and he can do more presentation on this and answer any questions the council may have.
So, good evening. It's really my privilege to serve as your attorney in part. I am the chief legal counsel to FMPA, which is your joint action agency, your power agency, and FMEA, which is your trade association that Williston is a member of. And as I always say, I'm here from Tallahassee and I'm here to help. The outline that Ms. Balloon gave you is absolutely correct. I represent all the municipal electric utilities from Key West in Monroe County to the city of Williston to Calhoun County. A number of them adopt their rates by ordinance. A number of them adopt their rates by resolution. The adoption of rates is a very politically active decision that the city council makes. It's a very important decision for the life of your community. And a number of communities do it by ordinance because they're required to by their city charter. You don't have that restriction here. You can either do this by ordinance or you can do it by resolution. A number of cities that do not have that kind of charter restriction have made the choice to adopt rates by resolution because of the one read process. Ordinances, as you know, require public hearings and 2 reads, and sometimes you need rate changes in a way that is needs quicker action than that, either up or down, depending on the situation. I will also mention that last legislative session, there were several bills floated in Tallahassee, and actually one of them made it all the way through, although it was vetoed by the governor. But there were several bills that allowed local businesses to sue the city if you adopted an ordinance that had an impact of more than 15% on their profit. Now, we worked with the sponsor of that bill and we tried to get exemptions in the bill to account for utility rate ordinances. However, we didn't make it all the way across the finish line. There were probably some exemptions in there we might have tried to shoehorn a defense into if you adopted a rate ordinance and then got sued in response to that. But it really presented a risk to all local governments that adopt ordinances in the state. If you have a utility service and you adopt your rates by ordinance, that presented a risk to you. Now, the governor vetoed that bill not because he disagreed with the bill, but because of some political shenanigans that happened at the end of session. And if you look at his vetoes, you'll see a few legislators' names who are prominent on that list of vetoes. So I think that speaks for itself, but I expect that idea will come back next session. I expect that, that it'll get passed next session as well. And so I think that part of what you would want to consider in adopting rates by resolution is to protect yourself from the risk of being sued. Your utility rate-making process is still a very open process. That doesn't change the openness of your process whatsoever. It is in your hands, right here, in the council chamber. You make your decisions on rates at a public meeting with notice and the opportunity for everyone from your community to attend. So none of that changes. It really is just a matter of, do you want to put all the formality around it of having an ordinance and a public hearing in 2 readings, or do you want to make exactly the same decision in exactly the same public forum with only 1 reading through a resolution? And I would submit to you that from a risk analysis or a risk perspective, taking the resolution approach probably puts you in a better protective mode for the city in the event that the kind of legislation we had this year comes back in following year's sessions. Again, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'm here from Tallahassee to provide a little perspective, and thank you for your attention, and be willing to take anything that comes up.
I know here, recognize. I don't know.
Council President Jones, Mr. Terry Witt would like to ask a question.
Okay, I saw Mr. Fuller's hand first.
Okay.
My question was, if this is a public
If
hearing.
you will, please go to the podium.
My question is this official testimony, and if so, do the persons giving testimony have to be sworn in?
This is a public hearing, but it's not a quasi-judicial hearing, so the quasi-judicial is where you get sworn in.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Witt, if you will go to the podium.
Spotlight. My question is, if you have 1 reading, is there a public hearing associated with that 1 reading? Or is there no public hearing? I know it's a public meeting, but is it public hearing, just like you have normally?
So it'll be, if this change goes through, what will happen is, instead of it being something that we say public hearing, we put that on your agenda, just because that's what we call these ordinance hearings, but really everything that's on your agenda is a public hearing, because the public has the opportunity to make comment on everything that is on your agenda, and there's always an opportunity before every vote for the public to have a say in what is being voted on, which is how we run the city. So we mostly put public hearing before ordinances for kind of the formality of it all, but so the answer to your question is the public will have a say in any change that will be made to the rate or to the rate resolution if this ordinance goes through, insofar as the public can comment on every resolution before a vote is made on it.
But there would be no public hearing per se, not a formal thing.
Not in quotes, not public hearing in quotes. Yes, correct.
Yeah, it seems like a little bit of a diluted process if there's no formal public hearing with 2 different readings, and that seems like you're rushing it through a little bit. That's my opinion. I'm accustomed to public hearings, that's what I like to see, because it offers more transparency, in my opinion. No offense to what he was saying. I think public hearings offer more transparency.
Thank you for comments, Mr. Witt. Anyone else from the public have questions or comments?
Yes, my name is Dwayne Williams. I'm a citizen here in Williston. I would like to ask the council to consider not approving this resolution. I have some additional concerns that has not been addressed yet about the reasonings that were given from the city staff as to the rate increase that I could get into now, or I can get into in a few moments. But I think that we need to maintain the current public hearing by ordinance, and I would like to tell you or share with you why. President Council Jones, I don't know if it's appropriate to do it now, or would you give me an opportunity to come back after this gentleman finishes? You can let me know.
You can continue now, Mr. Williams.
Okay. When I attended the workshop back a few months ago on the utility increase, I didn't have much to say because I was just trying to be familiarized with what was actually occurring. At that time, the city made a presentation to the council that this increase would be necessary due to the cost of providing utility services to the citizens of Williston. After leaving that particular workshop, I decided to take a dive into the current city budget that's online. And I made some interesting finds in that budget. In fact, I don't see where the utility department is really losing money like what was suggested at the workshop. What I see is a huge increase in the salaries and the cost of employment to the tune of $867,000 in the last 2 years. From 2020 to this day, there's been a 74% increase in salaries at the city of Williston, which has nothing to do with the utility fund. The utility fund is the reason it has been funding those positions, and now it is being drained. In addition to the out of that 867,000, there's a large amount of the reserve funding that has been used to offset this cost. In the budget itself, and I can read to you, this current year, there is a $454,916 increase that is a result, according to what's in the budget. I'm going to read what's in the budget. This increase is primarily the result of new positions, additions to streets and parks department, as well as staff wages and adjustment. I don't understand how the city, which has not grown in populations that much, has grown in $867,000 in salaries. I don't understand how the citizens of Williston can be expected to just afford to pay that kind of increase in a 2-year cycle. This all occurred in a 2-year cycle. According to what's in your budget, in 2020, the city spent $1,160,695 on salaries. This year alone, $2,028,565 in salaries, 74% increase. What is going on in the city of Williston? If you do this, then there will be no checks and balances. There will be no checks and balances. Right now, I am concerned that things are being concealed. And we were told that this was in direct correlation to the cost of utility. We were also told in that workshop that the city only had about 3 transformers of each size. Well, I rolled down there. In fact, the city has about 60 transformers. They have poles. The information that was provided is not truthful. Go to this budget. I printed off sheets from the budget. I printed off documentation. Matter of fact, the way they covered the budget this year was through reserve funding, and they transferred the money. They transferred $228,000 from the American Rescue Plan to offset capital improvements, so they can free up the money from capital improvements to make salary.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
you've drifted from the subject.
No.
You're into the budget now, which is coming up on the 28th.
No, I'm talking about, Ms. Jones.
We're speaking now about the electric ordinance.
I understand that, and I'm speaking the reason why we should not abandon the current processes, because I see a problem right here in what has already been done, that if you abandon the current process, there will be no checks and balances going forward. I think any citizen who's in this conference room tonight, or who listens online, or who may find out about this should be outraged, they should be angry, they should be concerned, because the reasons that was given for the increase is not correct. The city is in a shortfall of funding on the utility side because they're draining the utilities to offset salaries. And now the city wants to eliminate the process that's a check and balance and go to a resolution where you don't have to have a hearing, a second reading. I think that would be a mistake. I am opposed to it. I think any citizen here should go look at the budget. You should study the budget and see it. And I'll give you a copy. You can meet with me and I'll tell you. There's a...
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
I'm not sure where your numbers are coming from.
Your budget?
If you will, I believe we need to move on.
Well,
Is there
Council...
anyone else who has questions?
Council President Jones, if you don't want to give me time now, there is a public participation at the end, and I will get back up and speak then.
Mr. Fuller, if you have something different to add?
What I'd like to speak about tonight is I'm concerned about all of our citizens, but primarily our low-income citizens. When we're talking about a tremendous increase in rates, and it is, there should be a process that is more restrictive rather than less restrictive for changing. Now, if the increases are not related directly to cost of utilities, then it's a tax. 8% or eventually 15% is far too much of a tax on the citizens, but more so on the low-income citizens of this city. It's outrageous. It's egregious that we would have that much of a tax, not a rate increase, but this is indeed a tax, because it's over and above the cost of utilities. And if we're going to have a tax, then maybe we need to look at what that tax is funding, and we just looking at it, police and fire have not been addressed. One of our essential services has not been addressed yet. And yet, so if we're going to do that, we have to be careful that our low-income citizens are once again not hurt beyond repair. I introduced this to members of my church and some community members, and they were outraged. A lot of them didn't feel like they could come here and express themselves, and so that's why I'm here. I am concerned that there should not be, and I give you this, the reason I'm saying there should not be an easier process. When this was first introduced, I was in favor. But after talking with citizens, and after looking at what we're actually funding, I'm saying it should take time for the citizens to look at it and make some responsible decisions, just like council should take some time to look at it and make responsible decisions, rather than one look and then have it done. For me, that's irresponsible. So I'm suggesting that we look at it. We look at, and I just want to mention this, if we go with the plan that was presented to us that night about utility rate increases, this is a regressive tax that falls more heavily on the poor. By regressive, I mean if you take and you look at the average citizen. One is that the low-income citizens are less likely to be able to afford the energy-saving improvements in their houses. And yet, so their bills are going to be higher than the ones who can. So, and then we look at at some people who are making less than $700 on Social Security, their bill being $300 or better, not just for electric, but for their total bill. And out of that $300, that's there's more than 1/3 of their total income. The city needs time to mull that over before they make decisions like this, and that's why I'm saying, let's make sure that it's more restrictive rather than less restrictive in making any kind of increase. We also have to consider benefits to the citizens and benefits to the city. And if it depletes reserves, if it depletes the money that we have to run the city, not just utilities, but to run the city, we have to be careful. We are expecting council to make responsible decisions. And council, we leave it in your hands to make the right decision tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Are there any other hands? Ms. Valerio, please go to the podium.
My name's Nancy Valerio. I live on Main Street in a very small little house. My utilities are $345. Now, I'm retired. I make a little bit more than Social Security, but we're talking about two different things tonight. Number one, it's very important. I do not think that there's any reason whatsoever to make the system easier to do. Easier to do, what does that mean? That we can't meet twice over something as important as this? What's so big about easier to do? Have 2 hearings? Why is that any excuse to have 2 hearings? People ought to be informed. They ought to be able to come here and listen and know what in the world y'all are talking about. It's complicated what you're talking about. I don't have the vaguest idea about reserve and this and that and the other. But making something this important easier to do, it's just another word for less transparent. Let's hurry up and do it without having people have the opportunity to come and speak. Now, as far as raising the electric, I totally agree with Mr. Williams and Mr. Fuller. I think it's a terrible handicap to do. If the rate isn't going any higher, I don't think it's justified. But that's 2 different issues. But the one issue about 1 hearing instead of 2 is a lot more important than anything else right now. And I'm just saying that the citizens of this city are my age, a lot of them. I'm 88 years old. My pension is not going to go up. And if my electric bill goes up, think about the people that don't have a pension, that just are on just on Social Security. I know a lot of people my age that are getting $800 a month. Their Social Security goes up 2% or something like that. And their bills aren't going to go down. You've got to think about that. Look at the population of Williston. Now, when those new houses come in, maybe they can afford it. But I don't think most of us here are going to say, okay, let's have 1 meeting and raise the rate because we don't have time to have 2. They're 2 different things, Jebber. You're right. We're talking about electric bill, we're talking about the meeting. But we don't need to make 1 meeting instead of 2. We got time to come in here and make 2 meetings.
Thank you, Ms. Valerio. Are there any other hands at this time? Mr. Whitten, have anything new to add?
I just have another question.
You gotta go to the podium, please. Can't hear you from there.
I just want to make sure, this is just a change in process. This ordinance doesn't actually raise rates to that site, does it?
It does not.
Okay, just.
It changes the process from an ordinance to a resolution.
I will clarify that we have this ordinance in front of us now. if we change this ordinance process, this ordinance gets rid of our current rates, so later on in the agenda, there is a resolution which will address the rate schedule which we will put in place if we pass this ordinance. So that has to be done tonight so that we actually have a rate for our utilities, just for clarity.
Okay, Ms. Ballistic. Okay, this is, again, an open public hearing. It is the second reading of this ordinance. And we did have a rate workshop also in between that was open to the public. We have received your comments. Are there any other comments? One last call.
I have a
Mr.
comment.
Goodman.
Thank you, President Jones. I think it is only fair to announce that should the council choose to approve this ordinance to change to a resolution, by charter, I have the responsibility and the right, and I will be vetoing this ordinance according to the charter, and the council will be revisiting it to override my veto if they choose. Thank you, I'm finished.
Thank you. Yes, if he chooses to veto the ordinance, we would have to have at least four in favor to pass the ordinance.
Correct.
Okay, at this time, Mr. Cox.
I've got a question.
Mike, please.
For Mr. Joseph.
Microphone, please. Can't hear you.
It wouldn't work.
They're all turned on, or they're off now, so. Keep turning them on until we find one that works.
Maybe my question is for, when we talk about rate increase, or whichever, but I'm gonna ask it now. Are we making enough money now to invest in our electric system for the future?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I will tell you that in general, your electric utility is one of the most valuable assets you have in the city, second only to your citizens. You serve the citizens, and your electric utility is a tremendous asset serving citizens. It's appropriate to, and it's probably one of the most significant duties you have, because under Florida law, you, the council, are invested with the authority to set rates. When FPL or Duke or TECO set rates, they have to go to Tallahassee and they have to get PSC approval. But under Florida law, you have the authority to set rates for your electric utility here in the city of Williston. And it's appropriate for you in exercising that function to evaluate whether you're collecting enough revenue to invest in your system, because a well-maintained system ultimately is more cost-effective and ultimately leads to lower costs for your customers. But the level of investment that you put into your system and the level of transfer to the general fund is entirely a decision up to your council. The big value, really two big values, but the two big values in having a municipal utility, one is local control. You can have this discussion, all the folks in your community can have this discussion with you. Nobody has to go 2.5 hours back north with me tonight to go to Tallahassee and have this discussion. You have this control. But the second is that when FPL or Duke or TECO look at their rates, they're only focused, at the end of the day, they're only focused on return to shareholders. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to put more money in their shareholders' pockets. And often they're executives of the biggest shareholders. Here, when you look at rates, you think about, am I returning enough to the city to keep my system in good working order, to serve my community, and am I setting my rates in an appropriate way for my community? And you have the ability to do that here locally, and that's really the fundamental value of having a municipal utility, and going through this process tonight emphasizes that. So are you investing enough in your utility? I think that today everybody is challenged. Everybody is challenged today. Supply chains are out of whack. People were having, municipal utilities all over the state are having difficulties getting equipment. And when we had the Great Recession in 2008, there was probably a decade that y'all didn't invest in your utility because you wanted to keep rates low for your community. When prices of gas came down over the last couple of years, when the recession eased and we had more economic growth, that was the time to start investing back into your system to make sure you have a good, well-maintained system. Today we're seeing challenges again. It goes in a cycle. So I would applaud y'all for having this discussion about process, because this is exactly what you do as local policymakers. Is you think about how your rates affect your community, and you think about your utility as the most valuable asset you have in the city, and how you run it as a business to invest in it and provide the best service to your customers.
As I've gone, since being on the council and gone around looking at our facilities around and things like that, I see a lot of aging equipment, stuff that should have been replaced. Do you see where if we don't start investing in all that aging equipment, that we're going to experience some issues down the road that could impact the citizens?
I will tell you that most often our municipal utilities are evaluated how they compare to their neighbors. So here you've got Duke and you've got cooperatives. Duke is spending a fortune on investing in its system. FBL is spending a double fortune investing in their system. The co-ops are also heavily investing in their system. Why? Because every dollar they spend, the PSC gives them 12% profit back into their shareholders' pockets. They're incentivized to spend more money. You're not incentivized to spend more money. But as they invest in their system, as they upgrade their equipment, FBL is going to rebuild their entire transmission system by 2025. As they do that, they will get much better reliability. And you'll look like you're behind. You'll look like your customers are suffering because you haven't invested at the same rate. So it's important to keep up in the system, replace equipment as it ages. Make sure your line trucks and other equipment you have is in good working order, because that means less outages and shorter outages for your customers.
So what would you think with our, so what would you say we're capitalizing versus expensing?
Sorry. So what would you say we're capitalizing on versus expensing?
Yeah, so what's a good analogy? Think about it this way. When you buy a car, often people finance a car for 5 years, right? And the reason you do is because you're going to get 5 years of life out of it. And you want to pay for it as you're using it. And you could pay for it all up front. If you had that much money in your bank account, you could write a check and you could pay for it all up front. But now think about your electric utility. You have customers that come and you have customers that go. You buy a transformer that has a 20-year life or a pole that has a 30-year life. If you expense it, if you put it right into the budget and you pay for it all right now, then the customers today are paying for that equipment that has that 20 or 30-year life. If you capitalize it, if you take a loan or you put it into a capital account so that you pay a little bit over time, then you have the customers that are actually using it that are actually paying for it. And so if you have a 30-year asset and you capitalize it over 25 or 30 years, and you pay a little bit each year towards it, like you would a power plant if you were owning a power plant. This is how FMPA finances power plants. Last power plant we built was $879 million. We financed it over 25 years. We don't have $879 million in our bank account, obviously, But if you run your check for it on day one, then all your customers that day are paying for it. But if you finance it for 25 years and pay a little each year for it, then all the customers that are actually getting the benefit of it are actually the ones paying for it as opposed to just the customers today. And so it's important when you think about your rates, not only to think about the dollar that you charge your customers, but how you either capitalize or expense expenditures that you make for your electric utility system.
Well, I don't know that I'm for or not for the rate thing. I know that that's still coming, and I'm back and forth on it, but I didn't need to hear everybody even talk tonight. I'm definitely not for moving this process faster. It is big choices, big decisions. I'm a working man. I got family, and it's tough to do research in the afternoons and make proper decisions. So, me personally, that's just where I'm at with it.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. I tend to agree with you. The only thing that worries me about it is, and I know we're jumping ahead here, but is if we move to the next subject where we need to set a rate and have that to the Public Service Commission for approval. I think our timeline is very short. Can somebody help me with that?
Council member, or Council President Jones, are you referring to the submitting it and waiting for approval?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we would just have to come back and we would just have to restart the process with 2 reads and address it by ordinance. So yes, it would put it back for a while.
Okay, so it's no timely thing that we have to do. All right, so I would entertain a motion to table ordinance 2022698 until our next meeting. Is that what I hear that you would like to do, and so that it can be rewritten?
No, ma'am, it'd have to start the process again, I believe.
Yes.
But as far as this ordinance, we can make a motion to not move forward with it, and no matter what, it still has to be rewritten again, correct?
You can do that if you want to. We used the same ordinance number from last time when it did say that it was going to be an ordinance. This one says it's to be a resolution. Kirsten, can you help me with that? Do we need to totally do away with it or table it and have it amended?
So I would recommend totally doing away with it. We can reuse this ordinance number because we haven't passed an ordinance with this number. So if we bring it back and it's the next ordinance in the sequence, we can use this number because we haven't passed it.
Perfect.
Okay, right. So then I make a motion that we do not move forward with ordinance 2022-698.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
I don't think anybody seconded it.
All opposed, same sign. Do I hear discussion?
Madam President, we do not have a second yet.
I do not have a second, I'm sorry.
We had a workshop a couple of months, about 3-4 months ago, with this that was open to the public, and I think there was just a small handful of people that showed up for it.
I'm more concerned with just the whole future, though, making decisions fast, whether it's next year or the year after that. I understand we need to get something going with our rates as of today and with the workshop as of today, and I got no problem with discussing the rates. I just have a problem discussing when we take this away, this is gone. So that's my issue. It's not necessarily the rates or whether or not we're gonna raise the rates or not raise the rates. I'm concerned with doing away with the process more than I am.
If we didn't have the workshop 3-4 months ago, I would be there with you. But we do have workshops, and we might get 3 or 4 people to show up for them, residents.
I've also heard the attorney say that there are reasons to do it by resolution rather than ordinance that may include a suit.
She said there were pros and
I would
cons.
ask Jody Finkley if he could elaborate on that one more time for my benefit.
Yes, ma'am, this is entirely council's decision. As I said, there are utilities, city utilities around the state that adopt rates by ordinance and those that adopt it by resolution. Probably half and half for our 33 municipal electric utilities. So, this last session, the local business advocacy group, Florida Retail Federation, went to the legislature and said our local governments are out of control. Now, I'm a local government lawyer, so I'm a little bit biased. I think that's sort of hogwash. But anyway, that was the message to the legislature. And in response to that message, the legislature had several bills that would give local businesses the right to sue a city if they adopt an ordinance that impacts their profits by more than 15%. As you know, getting sued is never an inexpensive proposition. This legislation also provided for attorney's fees. So if the local business sued and won, there were 2 consequences. One is the ordinance was invalidated. And 2 is the city had to pay the attorney's fees of that local business, which means that the attorney's fees got paid for by the taxpayers in the city. That presents a risk to you as a city that adopts your rates by ordinance. We worked with the sponsor of that legislation, one of whom in the Senate was President Senate Wilton Simpson. And it was on a fast train, so we didn't get the opportunity to make as many changes to the legislation as I would have hoped. But there are a few exemptions, there's namely 3 exemptions in there that might be some protection. But there's nothing in there specifically that says that when a city adopts rates by ordinance that are necessary to cover their costs, that they're exempt from suit. So that's a risk to you. Now, that legislation was vetoed by the governor, but I expect that that legislation will come back next year, and if it does, it'll continue to present a risk to you as a city that adopts rates by ordinance. And so part of this procedural question that you have in front of you is risk mitigation to address that legislation.
May I ask a question? Madam President, Ms. Mayor
Of
Goodman.
course, yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Are you saying that in this legislation, the item that caused this lawsuit was the raise in rates at impacted businesses? Is that correct? Am I hearing you correctly?
You know, Mr. Mayor, it's actually yes, but it could be more.
Okay.
If anything in the ordinance impacts their profits by more than 15%,
Understood.
certainly the rates would be that, but it could be other things.
And are you suggesting that if these same rates were raised and impacted the business by resolution, that there would be no risk because it was a resolution instead of an ordinance, sir?
That's correct. The legislation was specific only to ordinances because when you are adopting an ordinance, you're adopting a local law. A resolution doesn't have the effect of law. It's a very formal process that requires a presentation at a hearing or, a public meeting like this, but it doesn't have the effect of local law. An ordinance does, and the legislation was specific to ordinances.
Well, it's certainly good that we have a governor that had the wherewithal to veto it. Thank you.
I don't understand how the opposite is not the case. So the resolution ain't more liable to get sued opposed to the ordinance. When you've discussed it throughout, it should give businesses more time to prepare for the 15%, shouldn't it?
I will tell you, and this is in communication with legislative staff, the legislature was not aiming at rate ordinances. What they were aiming at are things like impact fee ordinances, where a city says, you know what, if you want to build a condo in our neighborhood and our community now, you have to pay a $100,000 impact fee. And the developer goes, oh my Lord, that just cut half my profit out of the deal. That was what the legislature was aiming at, but the way the bill was drafted was broad enough that it picked up your rate ordinances. So, Councilman, I'd say that yeah, you have protection. If that legislation had not been vetoed, you have protection by adopting rates by resolution, but that is really a function of they weren't trying the legislature wasn't trying to go after you and your rate-making authority.
And is there still no way to table this and research everything a little bit more?
Can I have a suggestion? And if not, we can table it, then we'll come back when Councilman Robinson is here. What if we wrote into the resolution that we have sitting here now, the ordinance that allows us to do it by resolution, that we include in the resolution that we have 2 public hearings? We can still do the rate change by resolution, but write into it that we were going to have 2 public hearings before we did that. That seems to solve the problem.
Yes, I mean, I think that if we did that, or at least had a workshop with a set amount of notice, then I think that would give everyone time to do their due diligence.
Ms. Baloo, can we amend the second reading to do that?
So if we are gonna make a change like that, I need to look. The more you change these ordinances between first and second reading, the more you really need to start over at first reading and have 2 readings. I think that toes the line enough that I would recommend you start at first reading again.
Then it would be my suggestion that we rewrite it, a new one, as you say, and do it by resolution, but also include 2 public hearings in the resolution. That kind of hits both.
Yes, I definitely will be for
It
that.
protects us as well as gets the public hearings for the public to participate. Anybody have a comment on that? I'm asking the council at this time.
I'm definitely okay with that, as long as we have, the 2 public hearings or a workshop or one of the 2, at least 2 events leading up to a change. That's the only thing that scared me about this, was it ain't that fact that we don't need to change now. I understand the importance of what we might need to do now, but I'm definitely scared of putting this in effect and it not being the right decisions made in the future.
Can you see me? I don't
Yes,
know.
I can see you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I'm not waving my hand to the air. So I'm requesting an opportunity to speak. Go ahead and
Just speak,
speak.
Mr. Mayor, please.
Thank you so much. By our charter, the mayor cannot vote. The only opportunity the mayor has to impact the vote is the veto. If you change this to resolution, you effectively silence the mayor, because the mayor has absolutely no ability to challenge the council, to suggest to the council, or to try to implore to the council that they revisit any particular thing. That is the difference between an ordinance and a resolution. So if this passes, and this is my problem, if this passes, you effectively silence the mayor, because it is the only vehicle that I, as a mayor, or any mayor, has to try to get the council to reconsider. When it's a resolution, I can just sit up here and be quiet because there's not a thing in the world that I can do. And that is my problem with changing this from ordinance to resolution. I think it is being put into too small a picture, and I think there are vital components that are not being addressed. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor.
Thank you, sir. All right, so where are we on this? I hear we're not moving forward. We either need to table it or we need to do away with it altogether. And I'm hearing Ms. Baloo said we need to do away with it altogether.
That would be my recommendation. But I would also like clarification on what you would like us to bring back to you.
Try your motion again, Mr. Bullock.
I make a motion that we do not move forward with the second reading of the ordinance of 2022-698.
Do I have a second?
Mr. Bullock, you were talking about not doing this, but to have it to where a workshop, 2 meetings. So is that what you're?
Yes, I mean, I'm as far as it being ordinance or resolution, I'm still definitely up in the air on, but I'm just scared with passing this, like I said earlier, about not having enough time for everyone. Now, I know we did have a workshop on this one and everything. Like I said, I'm okay with the decision, except we've worded everything wrong, that we have to pass this to get to the electric rates. And so for some reason, this is how it's laid in front of me, which means I feel like if we pass one thing just to get to the next thing, we could possibly be hurting the city. So, to answer the question, I don't really know at the time whether I would like it to stay as an ordinance. I do like the idea of the mayor still having power to slow everything down. But I also like the idea that if it is a resolution, if we've had a couple of workshops and there's been enough time for people to think their decisions through. So I'm kind of in the middle. Okay.
I'll call again for a second. If we have no second, I believe we table it at this time.
If you have no second, then the motion dies, but we will need another motion on the floor to get us past this item on our agenda.
I will entertain a motion to pass the ordinance, just for the fun of it.
Council President Jones, may I have a minute?
Yes, ma'am.
Your staff has an obligation to the citizens of this town to provide the very best information possible for this council to make a decision. During this process of having a rate study done for our electric utility, we met with every council person, with the exception of one council person and the presiding mayor at the time, who did not want to meet. But I believe everybody listened in at the workshop. We had a long workshop where everything was discussed. We tried to explain each utility as a standalone item. We went through and talked about historically what we saw since the last rate study, which had been years and years ago. We talked about the future of our electric utility and what would happen if we did not. We talked about how conservative we were trying to be with our rates. We talked about where we stood compared to other communities in Florida. We did our due diligence. I was very proud of our staff. I was proud of FMPA sat with us and helped us to make sure that everything we presented was accurate. This is going to happen whether you do a resolution or an ordinance. If you have dedicated staff and you have people that are willing to come and consult with us to help us make the best decision, we're going to do that regardless of whether you do an ordinance or a resolution. At this time, staff wanted to come forward with the resolution because of the concerns with legislature. That was it. Whether we have one public hearing, two public hearings, you're going to get the same information every time we do any kind of rate determination. So I just wanted to throw that in there. We're not going to change our process at all. You're going to get the very best we've got, and we'll continue workshopping it until you all are happy that you received all the information we can give you. So right now, the question is just how we do it. Do you do it with an ordinance or you do it resolution? It's formality. But we are going to continue to give you the best we have. And I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Council President, we have Mr. Williams with a question.
I just want to respond to what the city manager just stated. I think that the information that was given in the workshop wasn't accurate. The reason I heard in the workshop, I was there, was due to the cost of the utility services going up. It was, in my mind, I remember stated wire, transformers, and poles, and the cost of power. I have a question for the city. Did the city not sign an agreement to purchase power from the co-op? I think they signed an agreement for a certain amount of years. Can you tell me how many years that was?
It was for a 7-year agreement, and the money you're speaking of right now were passed on to the customers. We did not retain any of that money.
Yeah. But
so the power went down for y'all, the prices went up for us.
Well, you signed a 7-year agreement how long ago?
I believe just over a year ago.
And that was for bulk power purchase.
Mr. Williams, please get to the point because you're off the point.
No, the point is that if you signed a 7-year agreement and we are into this agreement and the cost has not gone up, the cost can't go up for 7 years. And like I stated earlier in the presentation, the city presented that the reason that was necessitating an increase in rate was due to the cost of utility going up. Well, it's not going up for 7 years. Surely poles and wires and transformers are not costing that much. I stated earlier, not to get off subject, but I was concerned after looking at the budget that what was happening was the utility department was being drained because of other reasonings, staffing. And to ask for Mr. Cox, to ask the attorney to get into justifying whether a rate increase is necessary or not, I thought that was unfair because he doesn't know the budget. He doesn't know the current city's environment. He doesn't. And I thought to put him in that spot, to ask him that was unfair because he couldn't really speak to whether or not the city is generating money, whether or not the city has revenue, or how the city is managing their money, you know. So I just think, though, that the reasons that was given in the workshop were different than what actually is draining the utility budget.
Barbara, would you like to address that?
Yes, ma'am. So I think there's some misunderstanding here concerning material costs, labor costs, and bulk power purchasing. So the 7-year agreement is related to purchase of power. It has nothing to do with materials that are going up. It has nothing to do with the fact that there's shortages, that a transformer is sometimes up to 3 years from the time that you order it to the time of delivery, which means we no longer can stock 1 or 2 transformers. Now, it was earlier stated that we have 60 down there. Many of them are not in use, Many of them are transformers that have been taken down. We recycle many of those materials that are sitting back there. There are multiple transformers, model numbers, power associations. It's all technical stuff, but some of these transformers we have to have now 5, 6, or 7 of. And in order to get ahead of that, you have to have the capital to purchase those for worst-case scenarios. So, for example, if we have a 2 or 3 storm event this year, the question for the citizens are, do you want us to have the materials set aside to be able to address those outages in a timely manner, or are the citizens okay waiting a month for the state to come in and bail the utility out and provide those transformers? Because right now, we don't have the means to purchase and stock up on those. The times are changed as far as what we need to acquire and how much we need to have on hand. It was insinuated that salaries are not a part of this. A year ago, when the budgets were increased for salaries, it was because we added critical personnel that was required in departments that require so much personnel to be compliant. So yes, salaries went up because we were functioning on a crew previous to that time that was so bare bones that we were hiring other municipalities and other providers to come in and work with us. And by the time you paid their fees, you had basically funded the positions here in-house to have full-time. We just did a job for the transfer from Duke. They changed their transfer lines over here on Northwest Main, out toward Mixon Road, where the Duke substation is. That project there alone, we had to call in GRU. And the amount of money that costs is astronomical. We're talking, what's the amount? $69,000 for labor. For one job, for a period of 2 weeks. So that's just labor. That wasn't even including the materials. So these are costs that we're trying to get ahead of to address situations that we're responsible to fix if an event occurs. And these are decisions that have to be made. The question was, why speed up the process? It isn't a matter of speeding up the process. It is a matter of understanding that these things come by way of studies. We don't make rate adjustments because we want to raise. We request rate adjustments because there's been a study on data, and it's forecasted ahead of time to make sure that we have the resources necessary to reinvest. In the presentation that Mr. McCleary was here in the workshop in March, he pointed out that the average poll in this town is from the 1980s, and there are some polls that are even later than that. That's not sustainable, and those issues have never been addressed in the capital budget. And as far as other services, we talked about, I heard comments about the funds being loaned to other departments. Those are essential services that save the citizens money. It is valuable and important to have police and fire so that their ISO rating isn't increased, so their insurance is not jacked up on their private homeowners insurance. And besides that, it's just a safety issue. It's important that we have the amount of officers we need so that they can respond in a safe manner. So yes, the money from the electric fund does go to fund other endeavors in the city, but it's vitally important that we understand that those are critical services along with power and gas and water and sewer. So I want to make sure this isn't an attempt to get raises. This is an attempt to address an issue in an ever-changing economy. And the 8.9% that we asked for still puts us as the lowest paid utility provider in the state of Florida. My power bill at my house is double what a resident of the city Williston is, and mine doesn't include trash, gas, water, sewer. I mean, that's the reality, and I know we have low income, but we're going to have no resources. The slides that were presented at the workshop talked about within 5 fiscal years, right now, the over $900,000 that goes from the utility fund into the general fund is reduced to $4,000. So these are just attempts to address some of those issues that were presented to council at the previous workshop in due diligence.
Thank you. And if I could just add one small thing. When we had our workshop, what I tried to present to you was from a business standpoint, how we would need, what we need to do to run, if we were only in the electric business, what would it take to operate our business? And we tried to explain we had no capital. We have forfeited our capital for years just to be able to give money to the general fund to support other services that are not revenue generating. We have neglected our capital for a very long time, and we can't continue to do that. So right now what's in front of you is whether to do it by ordinance or resolution. I personally do not care either way. My only concern is that everybody understand that we're not going to change what we do. We're still going to give you the best that we have to make the consideration. Right now we're going into budget, and I can tell you there's money being transferred into the general fund, a little under $400,000, as Donald mentioned. There's no capital worked into that. We got poles that are decayed into the ground. We're trying to purchase transformers and inventory to keep our electric utility running as a business. We cannot continue to neglect, so we're being as conservative as we can with this rate increase. And I just ask you please to remember what we talked about in our workshop. Thank you.
May I speak?
Only if it's something new, Mr. Fuller, because I think we've addressed everything. We don't even know if we're going to get a motion. I'm trying to get let's get a motion in a second or whatever before we discuss any further.
Thank you.
We actually should have done that before we had discussion at all. Currently have a motion on the floor with no second. Going to call one more time for the motion, for the second. If we don't get that, we're going to table it and move on as suggested by Ms. Baloo.
I'll second it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cox. Mr. Fuller, do you have anything new to add? Now that we have a second.
The only motion after, be clear.
Okay, so on the floor, we have a motion and a second.
Council President. Councilman Bullock wanted to know what was the motion he made. Councilman Bullock's motion to not move forward with the ordinance.
And then, I mean, we can even, I don't know if it's too late now, but we could add in there, I'm okay with adding in there, you know, changing the wording or whatever. You know. Rewrite it.
Rewrite it.
To rewrite it.
Has to be a total rewrite with re-advertised and everything, and 2 more readings.
Okay, can he make the motion again, please? Hold on.
This one should die for lack of second. Yes.
Did you get this right?
I'm seconding Deborah's motion.
No.
You seconded whose motion?
Okay. I believe after Councilman Bullock's motion died for lack of second, Ms. Jones, you called for a motion to move forward with the ordinance, and there was no second. So I believe that motion died as well.
I agree.
I don't think that there was a motion on the floor to second.
Well, unless it was Mr. Bullock. And I never ruled it as dead.
As a point of clarification,
And
I
but I don't know if
suggest
that's
we
what
start
Mr.
from scratch.
Cox-
Not pretend, for purposes of now, there is no motion on the floor. Nothing has been seconded, no motion has been made.
Correct, okay.
Is there a motion?
So you're gonna rewrite it and bring it back?
No, is there a motion? A new motion needs to be made. Let me put it like that.
I don't know that I can get a motion in a second. We've tried that twice already.
I make a motion that we do not move forward with the second reading ordinance of 2022-698, and we rewrite it to where there's 2 public hearings or workshop. I'm okay with keeping it as moving it to a resolution. Right? After the 2 public things.
What a great idea.
And I will second that.
Okay, I have a motion and I have a second. Sounds like a wonderful solution. Any further discussion by the council first? Any further discussion by the audience? Please go to the podium.
I'm concerned about the last portion of that motion where we're actually deleting the mayor's input into the discussion. I think the mayor should have, the mayor looking at the citizens' interest, the mayor should have an opportunity. And I'm perfectly okay with delaying and in writing a new motion, but to say to write a new ordinance, but to say what that is, I think is not something that we need to do tonight. But something specific needs to be brought back before the council.
Thank you. All right. All the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will close that public hearing and open the next public hearing regarding the 2021-2022 Small City Cdbg program application. Mr. Fox, if you will come forward.
Madam President, we have a request for a
Just a second,
5-minute
Fred, hold on.
recess briefly.
Hold on, Fred.
Oh, is he on his phone? Okay.
Hang on, Fred.
Okay, never mind, it's been rescinded.
Well, I think he's about
I'm
halfway
trying
through
to,
his
he's already
presentation.
presenting, I'm trying to tell him to wait. Hold on. Hang on, Fred. Got to make a change for you to be able to do
Good
that.
evening, Mr. Fox.
Go ahead and speak up, Fred. Oh, we're trying. All right, try it now, Fred.
Okay, good evening. You hear me?
Yep.
Okay, my name is Fred Fox, and this is the second and final public hearing prior to the submission of a small cities CDBG application for federal fiscal years 2021 and 2022. The project involves 2 primary activities. The first is the replacement of lift station number 4, which is located at 218 Northeast 9th Street in the city. It includes the demolition of the existing lift station, a new sanitary center, sewer manhole and piping, new complete lift station with all appurtenances, connection to the existing force main, site work, new fencing, and then repair the roadway disturbed and provide an access road. And the cost estimate for that initial activity is $436,800. The second activity involves repaving of several streets. It involves the repaving of Southeast 10th Street, going southward from East Noble Avenue for approximately 2,100 linear feet. The repaving of Southeast 9th Street, 9th Terrace, repaving of Southeast 9th Terrace, southward from East Noble Avenue, approximately 1,000 linear feet, to Southeast 2nd Avenue, and the repaving of Southeast 9th Street, southward from East Noble Avenue, approximately 1,100 linear feet. And the cost estimate for those three repavings is $207,200. So the grant includes the $436,800 for lift station number 4, $207,200 for the resurfacing of the 3 streets, administrative cost of $56,000, for a total grant of $700,000, and it also includes city match of $62,075, which would pay for the engineering fees during bidding and the construction observation process. Additionally, there are 2 unmet needs if there's money available, and those are the resurfacing of 420 linear feet of Southeast 1st Avenue between Southeast 9th Street and Southeast 10th Street, and also that would be unmet need number 1, and unmet need number 2 would be the repaving of approximately 470 linear feet of Southeast 2nd Avenue between Southeast 9th Street and Southeast 10th Street, and the repaving of Southeast 1st Avenue is estimated at $21,062, and the repaving of Southeast 2nd Avenue is estimated at $23,570. And those are the activities included in the project.
It shows you're not connected, so you have to reconnect, I guess.
Are there any questions that I can answer?
You may have to go back to the Kansas City website and click the link.
By the way, there's a sign-in sheet that needs to be passed around. DEO requires that sign-in sheet be included with the application.
Does the council need to sign that sign-in sheet?
Use your mic, please.
The audience as well.
Does the council need to sign that sign-in sheet?
No, they will be shown in the minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Can a business only, sign this attendance sheet? If I'm not a resident, but I own a building here in town?
If you're attending the meeting, is all this is about. If you're here, you can sign.
Okay.
Yeah, anybody in the audience is welcome to sign.
The sign-up sheet is going around. Could you please sign if you have not signed?
Council, at this point, staff is asking for approval.
Are you there? I'm back home, but I don't know where they are.
And this is for resolution 2022-45, correct?
No, this is, hold on. Actually, we're moving to item 6. which is Resolution 2022-45. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, authorizing the execution and submission of the Cdbg application for funding.
Madam President, as a point of order, we are now on F, so there should be public comment at this time on this
Yeah,
presentation.
it is, and this is a public hearing, so.
Yes, I did open the second public hearing earlier.
So item F, the public comment is now next after the presentation in this public hearing.
Okay, is there any public comment at this time? I can't see Aaron. Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
There's no motion required at this time. What we'll do is close the public hearing, and then we'll have the city council comments recommendation.
I'm sorry, Ms. Bully, tell me again where we are.
So we are on item G now, so the public hearing should be closed, and then we'll move on to item H.
Okay, city council comment recommendations regarding the application.
Madam
I can tell you,
President.
in this room over here, we just completely lost all coverage, and Aaron had to come reestablish it. So I got lost where you were.
Okay, Madam President, if you could just close the public hearing first before we move on to
All
item
right, at
H.
this time, if there are no further public comments, we will close the public hearing. Are there city council comments or recommendations? If not, we have multiple resolutions that are in regard to this project. Are we ready to move to those?
Yes.
Okay, item 6A, Resolution 2022-45, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, authorizing the execution and submission of the Cdbg application for funding. Mr. Fox.
Yes, this is the resolution, basically authorizing the, 45 was for the submission of the application. So, with this resolution, you'll be authorized with the submission of the application to DEO, and the application is due in DEO the 21st of this month, which is Thursday of this week.
I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2022-45.
Second that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cox, was that a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Any discussion from anyone, including the audience? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Resolution 2022-46, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, authorizing the use of $62,075 of the City of Williston funding as leverage for the Small Cities Neighborhood Revitalization Community Development Block Grant application that the city will be submitting to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for federal fiscal year 2021-22. Mr. Fox.
Yeah, 50,000 of this is matched for points. You get 25 points in the competition for that. And the remainder was to get us to the cost estimate the engineer provided. So basically, the grant is $700,000, and with the engineer's cost estimate, including his fees for bidding and inspection services, it was $62,075 above the initial $700,000. That's where the amount came from.
Thanks.
If you don't get funded, you're not required to, expend the funds.
Thanks, sir. Entertain a motion for resolution 2022-46.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 2022-46.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from anyone? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Resolution 2022-47, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Florida, authorizing the implementation of the long-term and short-term objectives of the City of Williston Community Development Plan, several.
And this resolution is basically saying that the project that we're proposing is in line with your comprehensive plan and the city's goals. It's not contrary to those, it's basically follows the path that y'all set up for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2022-47, excuse me.
I make a motion that we approve resolution 2022-47.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from anyone? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item D, resolution 2022-36, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Williston, Levy County, Florida, establishing a revised rate and fee schedule for electric utilities and providing an effective date. My question, of course, is do we need to wait or can we proceed?
Madam President, because you've not changed your ordinance, this resolution would not be adequate in order to change the rates as it provides. So I would recommend that there be a motion that we not move forward with this. We'll bring back a different resolution.
I agree. I would entertain that motion.
I make a motion that we do not move forward with resolution 2022-36.
I second that.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Council President, can we ask for a 10-minute break?
Item E,
Council President?
Okay, am I hearing that you want to take a break?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Okay, we will take a break until 8:20. Thank you.
Thank you.
Trespass.